a beautiful movie and
Thousands of
has
years ago,
all
these were the forces that ruled our world.
it's a great movie, and it has a absolutely fantastic lesson. I would say the lesson Zootopia is so needed today. And I'm not even going to tell the lesson has to do with we're all okay and the value of everybody. Now, I am going to read a little something to you. And I decided that since I was reading, I would give myself a rocking chair. Hopefully, I won't fall asleep. Be sure and say, "Hey, wake up." I have been teaching from this book, the Book of Joy, which is a book about a conversation between His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, with Douglas Abrams. And I'm actually going through pretty slowly because every chapter has some amazing lesson in it for me and hopefully for all of us. This one I actually just wanted to read. So relax, pretend your favorite grandma or, too young to be a grandma really person was reading you this story. Because it's a chapter on despair. But remember, there's always a happy ending, okay, when your person reads to you. Here's a chapter, Despair, the world is in such turmoil. It was time to ask the question that people from around the world most wanted me to ask. A question not about joy, but about sorrow. And not about theirs, but about others. People all over the world wanted to know how they could possibly live with joy in a world so filled with sorrow and suffering. A woman named Dawn, who sent in a question, asked it this way. The world is in such turmoil, war, starvation, terrorism, pollution, genocide. My heart hurts for these issues. How do I find joy in the midst of such large world problems? You're the elder, the Dalai Lama said, gesturing to the Archbishop. You show your humanity, the Archbishop began, by how you see yourself not as apart from others, but from your connection to others. I have frequently wept about the things such as the ones you have mentioned. God created us and said, "Go now, my child. You have freedom." And God has such an incredible reverence for that freedom that God would much rather we went freely to hell than compel us to come to heaven. Yes, we're capable of the most awful atrocities. We can give a catalog. And God weeps until there are those who say, "I do want to try to do something." It is good also to remember that we have a fantastic capacity for goodness. And then you look again, and you see those doctors and nurses from other parts of the world who go into those situations. You say, Doctors Without Borders, why do they go there? I mean, they could stay in France or wherever and have a wonderful practice, but they don't. They go off to some of the most poverty-stricken places. You've seen it with Ebola. People go into a hugely dangerous situation coming from countries where they don't have Ebola, and they have no reason to go to Sierra Leone or wherever. They are just showing us of what we're all capable of being. And by proxy, we link ourselves to those and try as much as we can to enter into who we are, people of compassion. What can you do to help change that situation? You might not be able to do a great deal, but start where you are and do what you can where you are. You just say that one again. Start where you are and do what you can where you are. And I'll add, with what you have. the Archbishop goes on to say, it's wonderful that we can be distressed. We have an open heart. And we should be appalled. That's part of the greatness of who we are, being appalled and being distressed at the suffering of others. When a disaster happens, we realize we are family. Now, Douglas Abrams, the man who wrote the book with these two people, says that the Archbishop's and the Dalai Lama's conviction that we will have a different world eventually struck him. That the world is going to change for the better. And I think that's all I want to read from the book. And I wanted to convey, as I'm reading this book, how much love I feel from these two holy people. They feel like loving, kind, father-like figures to me. And I know they do for many people. So just the fact that the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop are in the world makes me feel happy. It gives me a sense of the world is going to be okay, and that people are going to be okay. Now, this chair, this chair can be for whoever feels tired and wants to take a little rock later on. Overcoming the world's turmoil. This is what I've come to the conclusion, and I believe that those teachers have too. It's with our loving hearts. The only way we can overcome turmoil is to actually start right inside us and keep our hearts open. And that's not so easy, is it? It is so much better to shut down and not have to feel pain when we look online or watch any news or read any newspaper. You can always find a story of somebody suffering horrendously. And the gift of our spiritual path is to keep our heart open. And that is the gift that we can give to each other. And I have to tell you that I actually have a stronger sense of urgency each week about how important it is to keep our hearts open and to keep our hearts open for each other together. Specifically, where we are in this community, this community of unity. I don't know why I was having the thought, but I was thinking about what would I do if I went back and talked to my little teenage self, because I was a little bit of a unhappy teenager, and I was the kind of, how some teenagers are complacent and some teachers are dramatically miserable.